Hello, everybody. I'm Granny Ricky, and I'm here to read you a story once again. Hello to all my friends all over the world. I've got people that watch me in South America, North America, Africa, Asia, Europe. Where are you watching me from? I would love to know. Please remember to subscribe so that you can get all these stories as I release them. Today we're reading an age-old fairy tale called Hansel and Gretel. This version has been written by Saviour Pirotta and illustrated by Cecilia Johansson. Once there was a woodcutter who had 2 children, a boy called Hansel and a girl called Gretel. He loved them very much, but his wife, their stepmother, didn't like them at all. One winter, the cold weather ruined the crops. Everyone in the land was going hungry. "Why don't you take Hansel and Gretel deep into the forest and leave them there?" suggested his wife one night. "That'll be 2 less mouths to feed." The woodcutter was horrified. What a thing to suggest! But his wife went on arguing and badgering until he said yes. The poor man went to bed with a great sadness in his heart. There's the woodcutter in bed. He's really sad because his wife wants him to take the children into the forest and leave them there. Hansel and Gretel were still awake because their tummies were rumbling with hunger. They heard every single word their wicked stepmother had said. There they are in bed, and they'd heard what was going to happen to them. Hansel comforted Gretel and said, "Don't worry, we'll find our way back home." When the house was quiet, Hansel crept downstairs to the garden and filled his pockets with lots of little white stones. The next morning, the 4 set off toward the forest. In front was the woodcutter's wife. Look at that evil look on her face. Then the woodcutter, who held hands with Gretel. Last of all came Hansel, dropping the white stones from his pockets as he walked. When they reached the middle of the forest, the woodcutter built a fire and settled his children down beside it. "Now rest, my little ones," he said. "Your stepmother and I are going to chop some wood." That wasn't really a truthful story, was it? Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire and ate their lunch. They were not at all scared, for they could hear their father chopping wood nearby. After a while, they fell asleep. When they woke, it was dark and no one was there. Gretel trembled. So they woke up deep inside the forest, all alone. And of course the fire had burnt out and nobody was there. "Look, there are my stones shining in the moonlight. There's the trail of stones that Hansel had left." And they followed the trail of pebbles all the way back home. Their stepmother was furious, but the woodcutter hugged his children close. He was really happy that they'd found their way home. Food was still scarce, so a short time later, their stepmother started to complain again. Once more the woodcutter didn't want to let his children go, but his wife wore him down. When the lights were out, Hansel crept downstairs once more to fetch some stones. But this time his stepmother had locked the door. Hansel returned to bed with empty pockets. In the morning, the children were given a hunk of bread and led into the forest. There they are, the stepmother, the father, and Gretel, and here's Hansel. Hansel, not having any stones, left a trail of breadcrumbs behind him instead. The children helped their father light a fire, and before long they fell asleep. When they woke up, it was dark and the owls were hooting. Their parents had left. "Don't worry, Gretel," said Hansel. "We'll follow the trail of breadcrumbs to get home." But the birds had eaten all the bread. There was no trail. The children were completely lost. All night long they wandered through the forest until they came to a little cottage. Look at that delightful little cottage. I wonder who lives there. What a delicious house it was! The walls were made of gingerbread, the roof of cake and chocolate, and the window panes of spun sugar. Hansel tore off a part of the roof, while Gretel broke off a piece of the window pane. "Who's nibbling on my house?" someone called, and an old woman came out. "Why, it's 2 hungry children," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Come inside, and I'll make you a proper meal." Hansel and Gretel followed the old woman into the house. Oh dear, is it a good idea to go into a stranger's house? I don't think it is. The old woman might have looked harmless, but really she was a wicked witch. After the meal, she suggested Hansel and Gretel have a little sleep. Her bed looked so comfortable, the two of them climbed in. Early next morning, the witch dragged Hansel out of bed and locked him in a cage. Then she kicked Gretel awake and said, "Light the fire, child. We're making some porridge to fatten up your brother. When he's nice and plump, I shall roast him and eat him." Ooh! Gretel was given only scraps to eat, while Hansel was fed all kinds of delicious food. There's the witch feeding Hansel all kinds of delicious food. She wants to make him really fat. Every day the witch went up to the cage and said, "Stretch out a finger, you little brat. Let's see if my food is making you fat." Hansel, who knew the witch could not see very well, would stick a chicken bone through the bars. "Bah!" grumbled the witch. "Still not plump enough." After 4 weeks, the witch got tired of waiting. "Gretel," she called, "check the oven. See if it is hot enough." "Aha," thought Gretel. "She means to lock me in the oven and cook me." So Gretel said, "But how do I get in to check?" "For goodness sake," snapped the witch, "you must climb in like this." And she got down on all fours to show Gretel. Gretel gave the witch a mighty push, and she tumbled head first into the fire. What a terrible thing to happen. Then Gretel set her brother free, and the two of them hugged and danced. There they are, dancing with joy. The fact that Hansel is free now and the witch is dead. Then they filled their pockets with pearls and jewels from the witch's treasure and ran all the way home. There they found their father sitting at the kitchen table. His wife had died, and he was all alone. Hansel and Gretel ran to him and hugged and kissed him. Then they emptied out their pockets onto the table until the table was covered in pearls and jewels. "We shall never be poor or hungry again," said Gretel. And the three of them lived together in perfect happiness. There they are. The dad is swinging on the swing. Gretel's pushing him. Right at the back you see Hansel chopping some wood, and they all lived happily ever after. Hansel and Gretel is a favorite of many people across the world. What is the favorite story in your country? Let me know. Send me an email if you like. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye, Serena. Bye-bye, Zoe. Mwah.